So, turns out, parenting across cultures. So there's this thing parents have been arguing about for literally centuries. You either raise your kids with warmth and affection, lots of hugs, lots of, "I believe in you," or you raise them with rules, structure, and behavioral control. Tough love, clear boundaries, and conventional wisdom says these are basically opposites. You can't do both well. You have to pick your lane. But what if the research shows something wild? What if the kids who turned out best weren't raised with just warmth or just discipline, but with a very specific combination of both? And what if that combination actually looks the same across 9 different countries, across different income levels, across completely different cultures? That would mean we've been wrong about one of the most fundamental questions in parenting. So what did 1,338 teenagers across the globe actually need to become thriving adults? For decades, parenting has been treated like a personality-type test. You're either the warm parent or the strict parent. Family therapists built entire models around this divide. Schools argued about whether kids needed more emotional support or more accountability. And somewhere in the middle, millions of parents felt genuinely confused about what they were supposed to be doing. The research that existed suggested these parenting styles had different outcomes depending on culture, socioeconomic status, even the kid's own temperament. So the real question wasn't just theoretical, it had real implications. If you're a parent trying to figure out how to raise a functional human, you want to know, is there actually a winning formula? Does it change depending on where you live or how much money you have? And can you actually do both the warmth thing and the rules thing without contradicting yourself? Mark Bornstein led this research, a guy who spent his entire career studying how families actually work across different parts of the world. He's at the Eunice Kennedy Shriver National Institute of Child Health and Human Development, which sounds fancy because it is. But what matters is that Bornstein doesn't just study American suburbs. He studies Kenya and Thailand and Colombia and the United Arab Emirates. The team published this in the Journal of Research on Adolescence in June 2026, and it represents something genuinely rare. A study that followed over 1,300 kids from early adolescence all the way into young adulthood across 9 countries simultaneously. These aren't researchers guessing what might happen. They actually watched what happened. Here's what they did. Imagine you're a videographer hired to film the same group of people every year for over a decade, starting when they're 13. You'd watch them change. You'd see when they leveled off. You'd notice patterns in who thrived and who struggled. That's basically this study, except instead of a camera, they used surveys and interviews. The 1,038 participants started at an average age of about 13. Half boys and half girls, spread across 9 countries grouped by income level, low income, middle income, high income. They measured something called positive youth development, which is fancy speak for whether these kids were actually becoming competent, confident, contributing members of society. Are they doing well in school? Do they have healthy relationships? Are they making good decisions? Simultaneously, they asked parents about their own parenting styles, specifically 2 things: warmth, how much affection, support, and connection, and behavioral control, which means structure, rules, and monitoring what the kid is actually doing. Then they basically watched to see which combination of parenting actually predicted which kids thrived. The findings break down pretty clearly. First, positive youth development improved significantly across the board as kids got older and moved toward adulthood. That's actually not surprising. Most people get better at life as they get older. But here's where it gets interesting. The kids who showed the steepest improvement, the ones who went from okay to genuinely thriving, had parents who scored high on both warmth and behavioral control. This wasn't a trade-off. It wasn't like high warmth meant low control, or vice versa. The best outcomes happened when parents were warm, but also present, connected, but also involved, affectionate but also aware of what their kid was actually doing. The effect size was meaningful too. We're not talking about tiny statistical artifacts here. This mattered. And here's the part that really caught the researchers. This pattern held across all 9 countries. Whether you're in Kenya or Sweden or the United Arab Emirates or Brazil, the combination of parental warmth plus behavioral control predicted better outcomes for teenagers developing into young adults. Income level mattered less than you might think. Some of the strongest effects showed up in low-income countries. The culture changed how parenting looked on the surface. What warmth means in Somaliland might be expressed differently than in Colombia, but the underlying pattern was universal. Kids who felt loved and supported, who also knew their parents were paying attention and had clear expectations, simply became more functional adults. Now this is where we need to be honest about the limitations, because science only works if we are. This study is correlational, which means we're seeing that certain parenting styles and positive outcomes happen together, but we can't be 100% certain that the parenting caused the outcomes. It's possible that kids who were already on a good developmental trajectory made their parents feel more confident being both warm and controlling. Maybe well-adjusted kids just inspire different parenting approaches. The study can't definitively separate that. Additionally, parenting styles were self-reported, which means we're relying on what parents said they did, not necessarily what they actually did. And while 9 countries is genuinely impressive, it's not global. There are plenty of cultural contexts not represented here. But here's what this does mean for actual parents. The old advice that you have to choose between being your kid's friend and being their parent is probably wrong. You don't have to pick. You can be warm and involved. You can hug your kid and also know where they are on a Saturday night. You can be emotionally available and also have non-negotiable rules. In fact, that combination might be exactly what kids need as they navigate the chaos of adolescence into adulthood. It gives them both the security of knowing they're loved unconditionally and the clarity of knowing what's expected. That's powerful. This research sits in a bigger conversation about how development actually works. For years, psychology treated parenting and personality and culture and socioeconomic status like separate variables. This study treats them as interconnected. It asks, what if the formula for thriving is actually more universal than we thought, even as the specific expression of that formula changes across contexts? It opens up questions researchers should explore next. What about kids whose parents can't provide both warmth and control? What's the damage threshold? Is one more important than the other in specific cultures? How does this change as kids get older? What about single parents or alternative family structures? And crucially, can parents actually learn to parent this way if they weren't raised this way themselves? Turns out, the secret to raising kids who actually thrive into adulthood isn't picking between love and limits. It's having both. It's showing up with warmth and showing up with presence. It's saying, I believe in you, and also saying, here are the rules. And that pattern holds whether you're on the coast of Kenya or in a suburb of Sweden. Scientists have been busy tracking what actually works across the world, and they're not done yet.